Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John's Reporters for the 19th of August. Well, we've started that run up on the shakeout indicator right here, as we were talking about the histogram rising before, and you can see it's above yellow, which is continuation. And the separation we were talking about of magenta and green just increased a little bit within the rising Power Mode Azure color. So that's all bullish, but we've been bullish since, well, the cyan moved below red back over here. And it's just been a slow ebb higher. There's just nowhere else to get yield at this particular point, given what the Fed is doing with buying up everything. And the NQ obviously a little bit stronger than that, as it had the spike up of steel, kind of getting a flattening of that for today. But there's that beautiful rejection that you look for when the two meet. So all in all, readings are giving us exactly what we expect to see. The euro continuing its breakout further and further. This is just part of that devaluation, which is it's still interesting given the fact that the Eurozone isn't really growing or anything. They just have a bit more mobility because they're allowing more universal travel. And from our oil standpoint, we're just dead in the water waiting for that eventual, because you get these stories back and forth, additional crude builds, drawdowns in gasoline, but without mobility, it's all just a bunch of nonsense. Gold heading right back up to the highs. No surprise with that one. We had just a little relief fill back in of the positive extremes. Like we talked about, this gap that took place right in there, filled it right in, and boom, heading right back up, and gold is going to be on fire for some time. Intraday, again, range is still looking pretty darn solid when we take into account from 33.89 range to 65. It's beautiful. We had this nice cascade lower off the magenta candle there in the sell. You can see the breakdown happen with the power mode, DOC spread, where cyan moves above, green crosses below, red below white, and then you had steel falling. The really interesting thing about this one is where you had the breakdown right here. I like to look for that cross of the steel with the orange spike. At the same time, that you still had
on the ground on the exact day that the Arab Spring started in Egypt, in Cairo, with the protesters.
So what we're really basically looking for in this configuration is that orange really spiking up strong in relative terms to the steel in that case. So it's one of those where, like further on when we ended up with this signal over here, much softer from the orange spike, and then getting the full DOC spread with cyan increasing. It was very short-lived because it then turned around. You'd already had the full Power Mode 2 reset, and then boom, a turnaround taking place pretty much equivalently at the same spot that the initial breakdown took place. And plus two, when you get that magenta breakdown, and like versus here where you ended up already below the red line with the extreme here, just the positive green, and that usually tends to lead to quicker reversals. And that's exactly what it did. Reverse right back up, and that's where we're at. We're at the highs. So we're heading close to 34 on our way to what I've been talking about for how long? Well, since this began. I mean, we knew with the devaluation of the dollar that we were headed towards the 4,000 number. And I mean, it's going to take some time to get there, sure. But the propensity to have to pull upward in order to counter the devaluation, what it gives us is a clear idea of how quick the deceleration or acceleration of devaluation is. And I would say that as we continue to move slowly, it's more modest. I think you're seeing currencies react to it a little bit stronger and in a little bit more dramatic fashion, considering they're doing identical to what the U.S. is doing, and yet the U.S. is suffering a little bit more. So I think they're saying that the U.S. is disproportionately being more aggressive in their devaluation by overprinting comparative to other places. So that's where you're getting that slight edge balance for the euro, because again, the Europeans couldn't agree on how much to spend, so their package ended up being smaller. So relatively speaking, 20% smaller, 50% smaller package gives you an idea of the acceleration of what you would devalue the dollar in relative terms. So that's the long and the short of it. Again, I will put up anything relevant on the Skype chat. Trade one.